Hi, welcome to Fort Carson Kids Time. My name is Chaplain Jonathan Court, and this is my wife Alyssa. Today we're going to be talking about the story of the Good Samaritan. But before we get started, go ahead and pause the video and go get a piece of paper and a pencil because you'll need it a little later on in the lesson today. All right, let's get started with the song, I'm in the Lord's Army. So one mission that we have being in the Lord's army is to love our neighbor as ourselves. And we're going to be learning that from a verse in the Bible, Luke chapter 10, verse 27. And Alyssa's going to help us learn that verse today.
This verse is going to be our memory verse for today, so get your hands ready to do some actions. Luke 10:27 is the reference. So we're going to say Luke 10:27. Love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, with all your strength, and with all your mind. And love your neighbor as yourself. Okay, let's try that again. It's Luke 10:27. Love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, with all your strength, and with all your mind. And love your neighbor as yourself. We're going to do it one more time and see if you can catch on. Luke 10:27. Love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, with all your strength, and with all your mind, and love your neighbor as yourself. Wonderful job. So we're going to be talking about the Good Samaritan. And as I'm telling this story, I want you to think about how the other people were not good neighbors and how the good neighbor, how we know that they were a good neighbor. So the story takes place, and it's a Jewish man who is on his way to the city of Jericho. And as he was on this way, he gets robbed by a bunch of robbers. The robbers come and they take his money, they rip his clothes all up, they beat him up, and they leave him on the side of the road to die. And he was waiting to see if someone would be able to come and help him. The very first person who came by was a priest. Now, a priest is someone who worked in God's house, the temple. You would think he would help, right? But he didn't. He walked over on the other side. He saw this guy, but he did not help. He was not a good neighbor. The second person who came by was a Levite. It was a temple helper, another person who worked in God's house, and also a Jew, just like the man who was hurt. This guy surely would help someone who was in his own country, but he didn't. He walked on the other side as well and did not help. The third person who came by was a Samaritan, a person from a whole different country. And something to know about Samaritans and Jews at that time, where they did not get along. They were enemies. And so you would think, oh, that Samaritan's never in a million years going to help this Jewish guy on the side of the road. And he surprised us. He stopped, and he was the one to help. He got off his donkey, went over, found that the guy was almost dead. And he went back and got stuff. He gave up the stuff he had. It says he gave up the oil that he had and the bandages that he had and helped wrap the guy's wounds. He took this Jewish guy, he put him on a donkey, and the Samaritan led him to an inn. It's like a hotel. He walked into the hotel and said, he's going to stay there with the guy overnight. And in the morning, he gives money to this innkeeper and says, take this money as a payment for helping this guy out. And if you need anything else from me, I will make an extra special trip. So not only did he give up his time, he didn't give up just his stuff that he has. He gave up his money as well to help someone that he had never met before, doesn't even live in the same country, and they were supposed to be enemies. And this Samaritan was a good neighbor. Now, Mr. Jonathan Chaplain Court has a few questions to ask, and after he reads the story.
So the key verse comes from Luke chapter 10, verses 33. It says, we'll start here. When he saw the man, he felt sorry for him and went over to him. A man was traveling along a desert road. He was attacked and beaten by robbers. A priest passed by him. A temple helper also passed by him. Then a man from another country stopped to help him. This man bandaged his wounds, and he took him to an inn and paid the innkeeper to take care of him. So what do you think? Who can be your neighbor? Did someone come to mind? Maybe it was a friend, maybe it was a family member, maybe it was your brother or sister. Maybe it's someone you hardly know. All these people can be your neighbor. What is the hardest thing about loving your neighbor? Well, usually you have to give something of yours to that person. Now, that might be your time. That might be your money. That might be your snack or some food. Maybe it's your favorite toy. But when you love your neighbor, it's a way that you treat them. And usually it's hard because we have to give something up.
Now, for our activity, the piece of paper and pencil that we asked you to get, go ahead and grab that. And we're going to do a little activity, and we're going to actually do it along with you. So what we're going to do is I have on my timer 1 minute and 30 seconds. And in that time, I want you to write down everybody that you can think of that could be your neighbor. All right, are you ready? On your mark, let's see how many people you can do. Get set, go. Got about 1 minute left. Keep going. All right, almost done. and stop. Okay, let's see what kind of things we put on here. I put my mom, my dad, my friends, my classmates. What about you?
Well, I said some of those same people, and I also said those kids down the street that I don't even know their names to.
All right, now I want you to look at your list and I want you to pick one person that you think that you could be a neighbor to today. Now remember, a neighbor doesn't mean it's somebody next door or across the street. It could be even a sibling or a mom or a dad or a grandparent. So pick somebody that you think you can be a neighbor to this week. Go ahead and circle it. And right next to it, write down what you can do to be a neighbor. Some examples might be writing a card, mailing a card, making a phone call, baking something for them, sharing something with them, or other things. So go ahead and take a second to write it down.
Well, thank you so much, kids, for taking the time to be part of our Fort Carson Kids Time. And we hope that you'll join us again next week.
Bye.
Bye.